Alright, this might be a long and boring video, but I figured it might help some people as well as far as the automation side of brew control and that kind of stuff. So I'll give a overview of how it works and what I've done to kind of customize it to myself. You know, it's a wide open canvas, so everybody's going to have their own take on it, and this is mine. So firstly, when you create things in brew control, if you click this, you have the option to create a device, a timer, a graph, a button, a switch, a variable, and an alarm. And everything you create, all these valves and all that stuff is a device, and those devices have names. And that's important to us because when we're scripting, we use these names. And so I just wanted to show you that because that's kind of the basis of how the scripting works. So as far as the script, what you need to do is you need to declare certain things, and here's where I declare those things, and so how that works. So okay, so I started the script, and what that tells the brewing system is that it's ready to brew. And if you go up here, so here's your status. Your status equals ready to brew. This is your status. This is ready to brew. And so it's a literal scripting of device names and what you want those devices to do. So it was hard for me to understand that at first, but it's a literal statement. This device, do this. So here's my statement right here that says if the hot liquor tank volume, which is right here, value, so this value is less than or equal to HLT low val, which was stated here, 6 gallons. If it is less than 6 gallons, then no elements turn on so we don't dry fire. It's as simple as that. So there's an if statement. If this scenario, then this happens, end. That's basically how it goes. And so I have one for the boil kettle as well. If the kettle volume in the boil kettle is less than or equal to BK low val, which is stated here, 5 gallons. It's really less than that, but whatever. Make sure that this element, which is labeled BK element, enabled, false. So it cannot be enabled. That's all. So you can't dry fire elements. So anyways, it's waiting. The system's waiting on brew start to be true. So when you click a button or turn a button on, it goes from false to true. So on, off, false, true. Well, true, false. So once I click true, parameters. Alright, so now it's waiting for recipe input. Now that's a button, and that's a state, and we want it to be true, so that means on. So here's the back end of the brew system. Here's the workhorse page, and let me shut the script. So what this page does is the back end. So I have a button that says sparge. By default, the system is no sparge. If I click the button and make it true, it's going to sparge. So now here's where you're going to get all your details off your brew sheet, whether it be Beersmith or whatever. The volume needed for your first strike, sparge volume, refill, because after we drain for strike, we want to make sure that whole Herms coil is still submerged, so we're going to do a refill. Then our mash volume, pre-boil volume, knockout temp. Here's our strike temps, our mash times and temps, and of course, since I have these cut out and scripted as variables, you can change this to, let's say you wanted to do a 10-minute 131 rest, or whatever timing you wanted. It also has a hop button. So depending on the hops you do, if you want, your first hop, I have it at 50 minutes, but let's say you want it at 59 minutes. That'll change it, since it's a live variable and it can change. Now, the cool thing about the hop additions is, if this is checked and this timer, and we'll look at the script, but when this timer gets to here, it's going to throw an alarm, and that alarm is going to say hop addition, and it's going to email me. So the system is going to email me and say, hey, come make your hop addition. And it's going to email me when I need to add grain, and it's going to email me when I need to transfer to the fermenter as well, and some other alarms. And here's some timers. And so once everything is the way, you don't have to worry about this side, just this side. Once all these are the way you want them, then you click recipe input. And then you're going to come back over here, and it's going to wait until you do that. And when it does that, it's going to say parameters accepted. So then what it's going to start to do is start some timers. And the first thing it's going to do is, since all these vessels are empty at this state, it's going to start purging lines. So basically it's going to purge the hot liquor tank lines, and so that means it's going to purge anything that the hot liquor tank could use to push water. And so that includes this loop and this loop, which is considered the sparge loop. So the sparge loop is out of the pump through here and back up in the top. And so we can't do that with water in the vessel, so we got to do that all beforehand. So regardless if I'm going to sparge or not sparge, these lines get purged. Then it's going to purge the underlet line here. So this is all good to go. And then once it does that, it's going to do it for 3 minutes. And when you tell the system to sleep, basically it hangs on whatever it was doing for that time. So basically purge 1 is going to be on, and mash tun underlet is going to be on. Well, purge 1 is right here, and underlet is right here. So basically it's going to push nitrogen through those lines and wait for 3 minutes. And once 3 minutes is up, it's going to go click off, and obviously I clicked them, but the system's going to turn them on and off. Then it's going to do the rest for those states. And once those lines are purged, then the system says, great, we're going to go to prep the prep fill stage. And basically what the prep fill stage is we're just getting ready to fill the hot liquor tank. And what we need to do is we need to say hot liquor tank in, which is this device, needs to turn on. Hot liquor tank out, which is this proportional valve, needs to go to 100%, because that's a value. And RO in, which is this valve right here, which is the reverse osmosis tank in, needs to go to 100. So the prep fill is turn this on and turn this on and turn this on so you can get water in the lines. Notice the pump hasn't been told to turn on yet, because if it turns on right away, there's not going to be liquid in those lines, and you might have a hard time actually priming the pump. So I built some code in for that, and once those 3 criteria are met, it goes to the next. And when it goes to the next, then we're going to start filling. And basically we have a wait statement here that says wait until the hot liquor tank volume is greater than or equal to 2. So wait till this is greater than or equal to 2, and then turn on the pump. So there's water in the lines, there's water in the vessel, so you're not dry firing and having an issue priming that pump. Then we're going to go to another wait statement that says wait until the hot liquor tank volume equals or greater than or equal to hot liquor tank vol, which is parameter we set right there. So once that's done, then we go to the next stage, which is prep strike. And that basically says, we want this pump on, this at 100, this, so you're recirculating. and then we're going to start turning on elements. There's two 5500 watt elements in the hot liquor tank. Both of those turn on. Both of those go to 100%. And then what we do is we heat our strike to a pre-boil. That's our status. Our status is, again, right here. We wait to 205 degrees. Then we kill all those elements. And then we actually turn on a PID. And then we just maintain 212 on the PID. So it's just a gentle boil. It doesn't need to, leap out of the kettle. So once I added a wait statement. So once this hits 211, then now we're going to start purging lines. And what we do is we purge. The first purge is the boil kettle lines, and there'll be a status bar that will pop up right here that says basically we're purging these underlet lines. And once again, we have to do that when there's no liquid in the lines, so we have to do that first. So we're purging the boil kettle lines, purge those, and then we're purging mash tun lines, and the mash tun lines are going to be like the herms and that kind of stuff. Purging herms. Then the system's going to tell me to add grain and continue. So basically, if you notice, we haven't purged the mash tun yet, because there's no point in purging the mash tun until we get the grain in, so you might as well do it at once. So this is going to throw an alarm. That add grain alarm is going to go to active, and then it's going to email me and say, come add grain. Everything else has been hands off until this point. I haven't had to be in front of the system for anything until this add grain and continue starts. So once the grain is added, then I click the continue button. And once I can click the continue button, the status is going to tell me grain added, and then it's going to start purging that mash tun. So we're going to purge that mash tun, and we're going to do that for 5 minutes. So that whole thing is going to get purged while the vacuum pump's on for 5 minutes. And once that's done, it's going to tell me that the mash tun is purged. Meanwhile, we're going to be cooling to strike temp over here because we've been boiling for 5 minutes. And so this is going to start cooling to strike, and that knows that it needs to turn this valve on, turns the heaters off, and then sets the PID here to strike temp. So that's basically just going to maintain that loop of just sitting at strike temp. And then it's going to email me and say continue to dough in. So then once I click continue, then it's going to start underletting and basically slowly filling from the bottom to fill up the container. And while that is happening, since these are gasketed vessels, this purge valve is going to be on to pressurize the headspace so you don't create a vacuum. And the same with any transfer between any kettles, sparging, anything, you're going to have to turn a purge valve on to create a positive pressure. So that's where we see this right here is we are filling the headspace, and that just basically, this is the different states of different devices that need to be on. So once we fill that headspace, then we're going to do our hot liquor tank refill, because we've exposed our Herms coil now to air, so we want to fill that back up. So we're doing that, and now we continue to mash. And so once mash starts, then your steps start. Whether it be 1 step or 10 steps, you just define what you want your status to say, and start your timers, your different values of your devices, what's on, what's off, and it's going to say your mash control target is your mash step 1. Here's your mash control PID. Here's your mash step 1. So whatever you define here is going to be the first step, and then it's going to wait until the mash out. This thermometer is called mash out. Value is greater than or equal to mash 1 step, which was 131. So it's going to wait until this hits 131. Then it's gonna count down until it's greater than or equal to the mash step 1 time, which the time is what we set again right here. So then it's going to do that for all your mash steps. Go through. Here's where the cool part is. So if you remember, I told you about our toggle button here. So sparge is false. So now sparge is true. So it says if, which is an if statement, if the sparge state equal true, so we click the button, then we're going to go through this whole sparging step of we're going to prep the sparge. Basically, we're going to make sure all this is on, and we're going to turn the elements on. So let's go back a little bit. So once this hits mash out, and the mash out time is 5 minutes. Once this hits the mash out time, and the reason why it's 5 minutes is I'll explain here. So once it hits 5 minutes, then this if sparge starts. If there's no sparge, then it'll just wait the other 5 minutes and go into wart recovery. But if sparge is checked, then what we're going to do is while this is sitting at mash out, we're going to disable the recirculation. Then what we're going to do is turn all these elements on, and we're going to pre-boil that sparge water and cool it. So we're pre-boiling right here, and we're waiting till it gets to 211. Then we're turning it down, and we're going to a PID, and then we're going to sleep for 3 minutes, so that boils for 3 minutes. And then basically we're going to cool it back down right here to sparge temp. So that takes about 10 minutes. So that's the reason why mash out is 5 minutes. It's really about a 15-minute mash out if you sparge, because we have to pre-boil and then cool and then start the sparge. So if that sparge button was selected, that's the steps it goes through. Then no matter what, it goes to a wart recovery, and wart recovery means it's going to get recover all the liquid in the lines that was wart, and it's just going to replace them with water or gas, so we can recover that so we don't have dead space. And so once it does all that, it's going to say recovered, and then we're going to go to the lautering. So lautering, we're going to lauter from the mash tun and then underlet to the boil kettle. And basically, when that happens, this is going to set the proportional valve to a designated percentage, 35% in this case. So that's going to go from 0 to 35%. It's going to turn this pump on, and it's going to turn this valve on. And since this is a pressurized vessel, it's going to turn this purge valve on to create positive pressure. So that goes. And then we're going to sleep it for a couple minutes just to lower the volume in the mash tun. Then we're going to say if the sparge is true, then what we're going to do is we're going to set all the hot liquor tank, pump on. We're going to match the same percentage with this proportional valve, and we're going to come up and we're going to sprinkle it to the top of the mash. So it's like a quasi fly sparge. And then we're just going to continue that loop until the kettle volume is greater than or equal to the pre-boil volume, again, which we set here off our brewing sheet. So once that happens, then everything shuts down. You know, all the different valves and devices that were in that state shut down, and they go to off, and we're left with, you know, the proper amount of wort in our kettle. And then we start the boil ramp, which basically says the boil kettle pump and the valve out of here are open, just so you can recirculate through here and get some readings, which I haven't finalized the multipliers and stuff for here, but that goes. And then once we get to 180 degrees, then we just shut those off, and then we wait, and then till it gets to a boil. Then we start this timer, and then we drop the element duty cycle to 65%. And here we have another if statement. If first hop state equal true, which it does, right here, first hop true at this time. And then it says wait until the boil timer value less than or equal to first hop time. So this is going to start at an hour. We tell it to start at an hour. And once it hits 59 minutes, then the hop addition alarm is going to go active, which is going to email me. And then the status is going to go to add hops here. And then it won't continue until I click continue. So when I click continue, it knows those hops were added. So, and then we do that for every other hop addition with just if statements. If that's true, if it's false, then it just continues. So once we get to the end, when the boil timer reaches 0, then we shut everything off, but we turn on the chiller water. And then we start turning other things on and whirlpooling. And once we get to the knockout temp, less than or equal to the knockout temp, everything turns off. It starts another timer with a countdown of 35 minutes. And when that timer gets to 0, then it throws the alarm transfer to fermenter, and which is right here. And so then I come down and make sure the fermenter is all connected. Once the fermenter is all connected, I hit continue, and then we transfer, and it's going to auto transfer until the kettle volume is less than or equal to 0.25. And then once that happens, it's going to say transfer complete, and I click continue and brew end to shut down the program. And so I basically have to be at the kettle to add, or at the system to add grain. And then for the hop additions and for the transfer to the fermenter. Other than that, this will be 100% hands off, and I still have to script the clean in place and just tweak some other stuff, but this